off with the awards and we start with the EBMA award. So will you take over, Steph?
I will.
Go ahead, Steph.
Yeah. Okay. I can't. I just want to see if Trudi's there. Is Trudi there?
She's part of the team at Fest. I think they are just walking in, and we give half a minute.
Yeah, I was just thinking it would be nice to be able to. Oh yeah, I can see her on Giles. I can see it. Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure she was there. Hi, Trudi. Okay. Trudi, I'm going to read a speech that was prepared by.
Sorry, can we just get Michelle to pin the team there?
Okay.
Michelle.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, it's me who's pinned, but
yeah, I'm doing just a minute.
Oh, and the team. Thank you. Hi there. Oh, I feel better now. I can see who I'm speaking to. That's great. So Trudi, I'm going to read a speech that was written by Liz Heath, who's the chair of the EBMA committee, because I thought she was better versed than me to write this speech. So she apologizes for not being able to be here. She would very much have liked to have been, but she's not. So I'm tasked with reading it. Okay. Thank you, Steph, for being willing to read this. I'm sorry I'm not able to be present and to present this important award myself, and particularly not able to give it personally to Trudi, for whom I've had great respect since I first encountered her 25 years ago in the transactional analysis community. It is wonderful to be able to give an award after 2 years in which there's been no nomination. Probably not coincidentally, the years dominated by COVID. And it is significant that this year it is being given to recognize someone from the field of education. Only the third EBMA to be awarded to somebody from that field since the award began in 1971. And a validation of the important contribution that practitioners from the different fields can make to each other. The award has been proposed and is given to Trudi for establishing a new meta-perspective that reframes transactional analysis as positive social psychology, and it's based on her paper, The Health System, Metaphor and Meaning, published in 2002. The Eric Berne Memorial Award is not given for the person, although we would quite like to give one to Trudi anyway, but it's not given for the person or for their body of work, but for the theoretical or practical contribution they have made. It was established to give recognition to individuals who've made major contributions to transactional analysis. It is intended to be an award that recognizes the writing and publication of original and highly significant creative works that constitute major advances to the development of the field of transactional analysis and has had a significant impact on the transactional analysis community. It is difficult to separate the written contribution Trudi is being recognized for here from her as a person. I quote from the fine nomination made by the team comprising representatives from all of the fields of transactional analysis. They wrote, Newton has demonstrated her commitment as an ethical, professional, and collaborative writer. Her writing often generously links to others' work, and this is especially reflected in the health system, metaphor, and meaning. Newton can be seen engaging within a system of ideas, making links and connections to others in the system, and there is a humility in her writing which does not seek individual or personal aggrandizement. Both in her writing and in her presence, I also think that Trudi models and inspires this way of being in our professional community. I would echo that. Some of the Eric Berne Memorial Awards have been awarded for radical new contributions that have set our community alight contemporaneously. This article was published in 2002, and I think we can consider it to have been more of a slow burner, which is finally getting full recognition for the way in which it has inspired reflection on the cognitive map that transactional analysis is and how we apply it. In this pursuit, Trudi points to what I too consider to be an important incongruity between the positive philosophy of TA and the pathologizing effects that our language and our visual metaphors have drawn, or have, the language and our visual metaphors have, by drawing attention to deficit rather than strength. I agree too. I quote again from the nominating team. Newton's The Health System, Metaphor and Meaning does what an award-winning article does best. It builds on the roots of TA and previous colleagues' work. It integrates ideas from outside of TA. It traverses fields of TA, and it offers new models and ways of thinking that deepen the overall project of TA, its philosophy and application. More importantly, Newton writes about how we treat our clients, expands on the vitality of health, and calls on all practitioners to consider and challenge their frame of reference. She critiques and opens up the map of TA from a playful, ethically curious, and collegial, respectful meta-perspective. As such, she shows a leadership of thought and practice that inspires, impacts, and ignites practitioners from all perspectives. It is in this spirit that we support the nomination for Trudi Newton to receive the EBMA. The committee agreed that your contribution to transactional analysis is worthy of this award, Trudi, and so it gives me great pleasure to give it to you in this way. And we have nominated Sue Euston to be the actual giver of the award. Couldn't think of a better person right down there at EdFest. So over to you, Sue.
It gives me great pleasure to pass this over following those beautiful words about you. Thank you. Congratulations, Sue. Thank you. And thank you for that. And Liz as well for that beautiful speech, which I cry. And thank you all for this beautiful, what's it called? Award. Thank you. This beautiful plaque, which I'm now going to put down so that I can read my notes. But many thanks. I'll give it back to Sue. Thank you.
It's so nice to know where you are, because I was in that room a couple of days ago, so I can situate you. It's lovely.
It's really wonderful to be here at EdFest. I mean, it's the ideal situation. So thank you. And so here we go. I need to actually stand a bit closer and get a bit more light. So obviously, I'm very honoured to receive this award. And it feels quite strange. I was quite resistant, actually, to being nominated, as Giles knows, sitting next to me for this. And I'll explain the reasons as I go on. But first, I do want to express my gratitude and say a big thank you to all those people who nominated me, as Steph said, from all four fields and from all over the world. To Moko Abe, Sue Euston, sitting behind me, Karen Pratt and Minikin, Andy Williams, who's also here at EdFest, Jan Grant, Rosemary Napper, Nick Langdage, Keith Tudor, and very specially to the two friends who actually persuaded me, Helen Rowland and Giles Barrow. Thank you, all of you, for nominating me and for what you wrote and for what I learned from what you wrote, which also I'll come back to in a minute or two. And as usual, I want to tell some stories. I want to honour the people who inspired me, who worked with me, and who were part of enhancing and developing the health system model. So, resistance, learning, and storytelling. Being a TA educator is always to be partly on the margins. For me, that has always been and continues to be a creative place. Being at the centre can feel unfamiliar and somewhat uncomfortable. But it's only by moving between the margins and the centre that creativity can truly be generative, through sharing and through the discourse. So, sorry folks, the lighting here is not that great. But no, well, if you can, but that helps much better. Thanks so much. Okay. So I want to start with some stories. And first of all, it's a borrowed story. In 1996, Peg Blackstone received the EBMA for a wonderful article, The Dynamic Child. You might not be familiar with it. If you're not, please look it up. It's great. I want to say how good it was, first of all, because I was a very new PTSTA, and her relaxed and positive attitude really said something to me. But I want to tell you something else. She wrote that when she heard that she'd been chosen for the award, she whooped and danced around and then thought, what am I going to wear? Then she paused her personal celebrations and began telling people. She called her mom, and her mom said, darling, that's wonderful. We're so proud of you. What are you going to wear? The power of script. So my what am I going to wear is less of an issue because I'm here on your screen and you're less likely to be critiquing my outfit with one or two possible exceptions. And I want to thank some more folks, in particular, Chitra, Liz, and Steph, for your patience and understanding that have meant I can be here at EdFest with beloved colleagues and friends, and at the same time, here in the online meeting among many more friends and colleagues worldwide. So my next story concerns the beginning of the idea that became the health system article. It honours Linda Hellerby, who some of you might remember. Linda is a teacher, and before she retired, she did amazing creative work with pupils in a primary school in a deprived area of Leeds in the north of the UK. Truly groundbreaking grassroots work, which I believe is what TA is really all about. She taught 10-year-old kids TA concepts and encouraged them to use them to understand themselves and their families and friends better, to enable them to deal with their life crises and to believe in themselves and make their own decisions. This was not TA in schools as problem solving, but as true education. Linda joined my first training group in 1996. One weekend, I shared Julie Houston's heuristic diagram relating a number of concepts developmentally as a tool for educators. Linda said, suppose we put the positive versions of the model around the outside. And that was the generating moment that became the health system model. The whole group had a great time for the rest of the weekend, adding more and more. For instance, Dina Clark's affirmations, the winner's triangle, Julie Hayes' autonomy matrix, and so on. And if I can get my techie here to help me, if we can share screen, please. I want to show you the diagram. Original, that's the one. This is the diagram that I drew when I got home to explain to David, my husband, what an exciting weekend it had been and what we had done. So very messy, doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you go to the next one, Giles, David, being an absolute whiz at design, no, that's not the right one. Okay, it is. Yeah, okay, the other one, back to where you were. Lovely, thank you. So this is the diagram. that David did first of all in 1996 to really convey what the model was trying to say. And then from there on, we come to the final version, which you won't have seen because it's only on my computer, which includes a lot more models, which weren't, can I use the mouse? Which didn't exist. Well, yes, okay. For instance, CAP that Giles wrote about in 2007, social roles model from Agnes Legernik, OK Communication Box from Karen Pratt. So these were all things which weren't there when the model first began, but became incorporated over the years, generally through discussion. We can go back to through discussion in workshops, at conferences, in training groups, and just by people getting in touch and saying, how about putting this in? So first, I eventually got around to writing an article, but first of all, it was a chapter in Keith Tudor's book, The Adult as Parent to the Child. That chapter was called Building the Virtual Village, following the African saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And that focused on the practicalities of the model. It was the presenting preventive and restorative strategies for early years practitioners and behavior support teachers. And it also made a strong connection with positive psychology. And it was that part of the article which was then enhanced in the TAJ article for which I'm receiving this award. So I want to say a little bit about that. The article in TAJ developed that emphasis and became more about the nature of the metaphors that we use in TA talk, sometimes without thinking about the implications. Metaphors are essential. The book that I referred to, Lakoff's classic work, is called Metaphors We Live By. And when we think about script formation, we see how we, each of us, turn our personal metaphors into stories which become our script. And that is how we actually explain the world to ourselves. So in looking at the ways that we can turn these metaphors, or at least offer alternative metaphors, which are about growth, positivity, development, rather than negative and sometimes pathologizing metaphors, that is the aim. We need to take care and look out for our metaphorical chat. And at this point, I just want to tell you something that I only learned the other day from Rosemary Napper, that when she presents this model, she refers to it as the Sanology model. I think that's rather good, and I shall continue to use that. So it was with enormous pleasure and some surprise that I realized how important changing the metaphor has been to the colleagues who nominated me, and to read their response. In their submission, the focus remains throughout on the meta-perspective, the approach, the implications, the mission to innovate and to engage in theoretical innovation. The thinking about thinking that they perceive in the article and in the other things I have written. And most moving of all for me, they mention a more feminine principle approach that they identify in my writing, so that, they say, in submitting this nomination, we hope to advocate for a more collaborative, organic, and incremental development that Trudi's writing and her ongoing contribution to the community represent. Thank you, all of you. I wish I had time here to thank the people who added particular bits to the model. That will have to wait for the TAJ article. But I do want to mention two other people, both associated with TAJ. Bill Cornell has been an inspiring influence with his combination of respect and rigor in assessing and editing articles. I learned an enormous amount in the early days of my writing. I still remember some of his interventions, and now I use them myself as the TAJ. And my appreciation also to Robin Fryer, who has dealt for years with my somewhat rough writing style and helped me to turn it each time into something more elegant. So thank you. And for now, another thank you. Thank you all for listening, for being here, and for all that you as a community have and continue to contribute to the joint venture of thinking and learning and growing together. And just to hand over, I want to say how proud I am that the next two award winners, Giles and Karen, are also, apart from being my mates, are also educational TSTAs. This is a big event for educational TSTAs.
Oh. Thank you, Trudi. Trudi, there are some people who've put some congratulations to you in the chat, so I'll send you those privately and separately. Okay. And Rama, it's over to you now.
Thanks a lot, Steph, and hearty congratulations to you, Trudi. May I invite Chitra Ravi to talk about the ITAA Service Award 2023 that is conferred to Giles Barrow.
Thank you, Rama. It's very difficult to separate the two co-chairs of PSC who work so well in tandem. I'll first mention a few sentences about the work of Karen Pratt and Giles Barrow for co-nomination of their service awards. Then I'll move to Giles and present his award and hand over to Thorsten to present Karen Pratt with hers. Some of the major contributions of Karen and Giles in their role as the co-chairs of the Professional Standard Committee were aligning training and certification processes with the new vision of the ITAA to be sustainable, environment-friendly, and inclusive. Preparing the training and certification processes for the digital age. Their work supports the climate change initiatives to minimize air travel, thus avoiding adding to the carbon footprint via emissions of aviation. Philosophically, to the center of TA, Giles and Karen considered the desire for inclusion, eco-sensitivity, and true international collaboration. At the onset of the pandemic, in-person training, supervision, and exams became a challenge. In the absence of conferences, exam sites, and travel options, and resulting concerns about the feasibility of organizing IBOC exams, supporting the urgent need for the long list of pending exams was a priority. They've developed policies and procedures for online training and certification for the digital age while upholding qualitative standards. They've revised and updated the training certification manual in collaboration and mutual effort with the IBOC co-chairs Sue Houston and Jacqueline Van Gent. The TA world celebrated Sue and Jacqueline for their immense contributions in July 2022 and were awarded the ITAA Service Award. This year, we are happy to honor Giles and Karen for their incredible contribution for the Service Awards 2023. Now, some sentences about Giles. It is indeed my honor and delight to present you, Giles, the Service Award to my dear colleague, friend, and the TSTA in the field of education, the co-chair of the Professional Standards Committee. I have known Giles since 2007 as an examiner on my CTA exams in Coimbatore. We have met after that for several various conferences and meetings. When Diane Salters and Ilana spoke to me in Raleigh about who could be this co-chair of the PSC, Giles came to my mind. I've experienced you, Giles, as radical, and your horizon is vast and almost unlimited. At the same time, you also have the capacity and wherewithal to consolidate and voice your thoughts in a cogent and comprehensive manner, which I've also often seen you doing. Your capacity to hold complex and tough conversations have been also incredible. These are valuable, especially when we engage in meetings where caring confrontation is the need of the hour. Your work with Haley Marshall on EcoTA is perhaps a significant influence on what you bring to the table in caring for the environment and for the biological needs of humans and every living being. The initiatives on global conversation about revisioning TA accreditation and examination, intercultural exploration, drive to inclusivity, where you worked with Karen, is the beginning of something that is courageous and will open possibilities of a transparent, responsive, and progressive system. The work aligns with the common mission statement, as well as the DEIA work that I referred to earlier in my report. On behalf of the ITAA board and the membership, I'm delighted and honored to present you with the Service Award for your invaluable work. Congratulations, Giles, and thank you so much for all your contributions. Big hand to you. And I think Jacqueline is presenting the award. Yes, Jacqueline is presenting the award to Giles.
Great honor, Giles, dear colleague.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Chitra, for those words. I was told there was an opportunity to speak briefly to this award. So I had prepared a few words, if that's okay. First, I want to thank those people who put my name forward for this service award. It was a surprise, and initially I was a bit confused as to what to do about it. Nevertheless, I'm grateful that our efforts as co-chairs have been recognised in this way. Part of the initial surprise came with a reluctance to accept the award, the thought being that the real work at PSC has barely begun. When Karen and I first met as co-chairs, we were committed to taking on the role on the condition that we would instigate changes in the system. Now, Karen has been a dear friend, a fellow educator and warm-hearted colleague. I've felt us walk side by side as we have gone on our respective TA journeys in our different hemispheres. So when we took up the PSC chairing, neither of us wanted to simply mind the shop and be administrators of the training and examination handbook. However, we hadn't anticipated the COVID pandemic and the immediate impact it would have on our work. Even more so, its impact on the task of our dear colleagues, Sue and Jacqueline. In some ways, the crisis deflected our intention away from system change. Yet in other ways, it obliged us to make the changes anyway. We've been in post now for about 4 years, and during that time, we've become even more determined in the endeavour to bring about a system that reflects and better serves our international cross-cultural membership. Whilst I thought I had a good enough sense of systemic issues around power and privilege before taking on the role, I've been profoundly changed by my experience in these years. I can say confidently, friends, I can say confidently that if I was not a white man, if I was not a European with English as my first language and economically secure, I would not have made it as a TSTA, let alone a TSTA. I would not have made it as a CTA. This is not to say that I'm some kind of fraud. I have certainly worked for my qualifications. But what I do mean is that I come to our professional world with significant advantages that others do not have. This also means I've not had to be as agile, as resourceful, or as resilient, or as ingenious as those that don't, for example, have English as a first language, or are not familiar with the Western frame of reference in which I live and work and benefit from its advantages. Furthermore, whilst I had been previously aware about unconscious bias, It's quite something else to see it so and experience it so alive in our training and certification system. It's been painful and shameful for me to learn at first hand how colonial dynamics, for example, continue to creep into exam processes. It has been eye-opening to discover that how we are languaged is profoundly important in how individual and cultural levels of understanding frame phenomenological experience and in theorizing psychological processes. It's been deeply concerning to see how close up, how embedded in our training and exam system are old notions of where power is located, who defines what is and what is not TA, what counts as valid training and what does not, what a proper exam must look like, which fields are more important than others, who is asked to present at conferences, whose writing is preferred in training and examination, and whose is not, where important practice is located, who gets to be our organisational post holders, and also in noticing the trading route by which those trainers in the West are so accustomed to be invited east, but yet how rare it is for this to be reciprocated. And the irony here is not lost on me, who gets the awards for distinction, achievement and service? Now listen, I offer these reflections to make the point that it's one thing to theorise on matters of systemic and power and privilege, and quite another to find oneself implicated, as we all are, and also holding some degree of responsibility for it. What to do about it is the challenge, and one which I can find overwhelming and impossible at times. And it's at these times I'm minded of the words of an old East German radical educator, Gerda Hanko, when I asked her, how might we change, how might we go about system change? And she reminded me, she said, Giles, systems resist what they need most. So work with the healthy parts of the system. And I asked her, what does that mean? And she said, we do it through creative subversion. Education can be about many things, and much has been written on it. But sometimes education is about the installation of hope when hope is not obviously seen or discerned. Karen and I have been really supported by dozens of members who have raised questions, confronted our biases, and encouraged our initiative to open up the system. And there's hope in all of that. So we continue to be committed to the task in hand, and certainly for my part, hope to grow further as a worthy recipient of this award in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giles. Thank you for this.
Congratulations, Giles. And that was an incredible thinking, and thank you for it. And Chitra, thank you for your words. They were so apt and right. May I invite Thorsten to award Karen Pratt with ITAA Service Award 2023.
Thank you, Rama. And thank you, Chitra, and thank you, Giles. Is there more to say about you, Karen? Because many things were already mentioned why you deserve this award so rightfully. The Service Award is for servicing the membership. That is would be my response to you, Giles. It's for servicing the membership. And you both, Giles, congratulations, of course, to you as well as to you, Karen, is you service the membership by doing the work, by rethinking what is needed. And I feel touched by this because this is always also going to the professional association. We think about what is needed in a professional world to keep up and be contemporary, modern, and looking in towards the future. And that is what you, Giles, and you, Karen, as well, are doing. And I recall one event, Karen, from our years of working together. We were both IBOC chairs, and we were sitting in the breakfast room in Cochin while the flood was pouring away the beautifully planned conference. And among that, the TEW. And we were thinking what to do. even the TEW chair, Julie Hay. Hello, Julie, I know you're around. You were chair at that time. And almost at the same moment, you came up with the idea, let's do it online. And that was really something. The pandemic was not in sight, but we were thinking, how can we make it possible for all these candidates to travel from far away, from, for example, stuck in Bangalore? How can we make it possible for them to be a member, a part of the community? And that was your thinking, and that was still your thinking. And I know, Karen, you're doing this for years because you're delivering a lot of TA training online for years and years in various parts of the world. I recall, although I never was a part of it, that you were doing a lot of work online in India and doing it in UK. So you were very well experienced with doing this online. So you had the idea, let's do this. Julie's idea is a good idea. Let's do this and let me observe and see what we can do and evaluate. So that is the part of being inclusive, eco-sustainable was there, already there, and the pandemic was a few years away. I really enjoyed working together with you as IBOC chair. And I was pleased as well as a little bit concerned, but I said, I want to go to PSC because that meant I would lose the IBOC chair. But I was confident that that would be a great addition to PSC, to the Professional Standards Committee. And lovely that you went over there and shared your ideas and brought up ideas. And Giles mentioned warm-hearted, and I think it was mentioned as well from Chitra, I cannot recall right now, ethical, respectful, inclusive. And in German, we use the phrase thinking around the edge. So, you know, having some ideas outside of the frame of reference, if you can say it like this. So, Karen, you present this for me in your work in PSC. And I hope you stay on that and transition with us into the professional association. This is a truly deserved service award and in the service of the membership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Torsten. So here's my plaque. Thank you, everybody. So a few words in response. I have a very deep gratitude that together with Giles, I've been nominated and accept this service award. And I'm especially excited to be playing a part in continuing to work towards the emergence of a way of positioning training and certification that supports the values of social change, diversity and inclusion, ecological commitments, and educational diversity. In reflecting on what I wanted to say today, the metaphor of a bridge came to mind. And it first emerged as Giles and I were having one of our conversations talking about the global conversation. The idea that we potentially were the bridge between what is and what might be in the training and certification system. And as I share and honor some of the people in the TA world who went before me, I sense being a bridge between them and those still to come in future generations. I'm proud to be a South African and living on the African continent. The accessibility of TA in Africa has been slowly growing. It began in the 70s with South Africans Patricia Clarkson and Maria Gilbert completing their own TA training and encouraging a small group of South African counselors and therapists to form a TA learning group in Johannesburg. And Sharon Kalinko was part of this group. In those very early days, Richard Erskine and Rebecca Trautman were amongst the few foreign trainers willing to train in a South Africa ruled by the apartheid regime. Closer to the 2000s, several other trainers regularly traveled to work in South Africa, most notably Colin Brett, Trudi Newton, and Joanna Beasley Richards. My own journey in TA began in 2000 when Colin traveled from the UK to Cape Town every month to run a TA training group. This was before the days of online learning, of course. And being so isolated in South Africa, I chose to seek out connections at international conferences. I remember anxiously traveling alone to my first conference in 2005 in Edinburgh. And Colin said to me, "There's a chap you must meet. Look out for Giles." And that was the first time Giles and I began to get to know each other as colleagues. But I was one of the privileged South Africans who could do this. I was able to find support to travel. My mother tongue is English. And this is not the case for many others in Africa. In 1993, Diane Salters had returned to South Africa from exile, and together with Sharon Kolinko formed the South African TA Association, which hosted a very successful world conference in 2008. It was a really proud moment to be the first person in Africa to achieve an educational CTA, and in my own country. That felt huge for me to be able to do. And I really remember some fun moments of Giles celebrating becoming a TSTA at those same exams. I won't go into the details. I'm going to share a few images as I talk about my CTA. My CTA case study was a project in a small school within an informal settlement in Cape Town. An amazingly resilient group of Black educators teaching local children out of old shipping containers renovated to become classrooms. TA powerfully impacted those teachers. How much more powerful it might have been if a local person could have been doing this in their mother tongue. But they were excluded on so many levels from meeting the requirements to move towards TA certification. And this is why the work Giles and I are doing feels so important for me. The digital age has opened up accessibility for people around Africa to now be part of ongoing TA training groups. My South African TA colleague, Marguerite Sacco, and I have people from several African countries in our training groups. Kenya, Nigeria, Ethiopia, and Egypt being some of them. One of my trainees in Ethiopia was recently approached to join with counselors working with boys and girls who have faced human trafficking, imprisonment, and torture, and are now returning to Ethiopia. He was asked to offer what he described as TA wisdom to support these children. Such are the situations in which TA professionals in Africa can make an impact. So with the opportunities for online training and certification, it feels as if the journey to spreading TA in Africa has taken another few steps forward. And it has equally opened up opportunities in many other parts of the world. And this is what keeps me excited about the work of the PSC, enabling a vision for a new system, upholding the ITAA values to take shape. As I reflect on the legacy I might be leaving, and whether years later I will have been a good ancestor, this work feels one of the most deeply significant things that I've had the opportunity to be part of. And I couldn't be more blessed to be able to share this journey with Giles, a journey of connection over many years, coming together in our shared role in holding the emergence and almost the birthing, it feels like, of something new. So with much gratitude, thank you, everybody.
It'd be lovely for us to unmute ourselves and really clap for the 3 awardees.
Fantastic.
Such a lot of moving stories and narratives that you have shared. Thank you so much, Trudi, Giles, and Karen. I think my heart is so full. I also want to say that it's good for us to also look at how we can close this evening. Many of you have stayed on and really given your time. And so happy that we spent the time together, although it was online. Yeah, in some ways, we will also look at saying goodbye. Michelle, we can maybe not pin anyone and just say bye-bye to everyone with waving of our hands and calling this whole AGM as well as the award ceremony to a close. So thank you very much, everybody. And I would really request that the board members stay on for 5-10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.